Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Decentering Men series. I'm going to be talking about this whole concept of women hitting the wall. I'm not sure if I'm going to post this on Patreon or on YouTube yet, but if this ends up on YouTube, please subscribe to the Patreon because I've got over 200 additional episodes on there. And that's where I take personal requests where you guys can ask any question you want and I can make an episode on it. But one of the pretty girls said, "Can you make a video for women 30 plus? I'm 34, trying to reshift our mindset about losing our dating value." So, one of the main talking points that I hear people say is that you hit the wall. So, I guess if you're above the age of 25 or something, or maybe if you're above your late 20s, then somehow your value is supposed to go down. Number one, that's a male centered insult. Your value as a woman isn't determined by how many men desire you. So, anybody that says that, they're a red pill person. That's the only community that I've ever heard use that talking point. And we all know that people in the red pill community or this manosphere type of community, a lot of those people are average to below average, usually black men that have no status in society or desirability. Because if you look at their own YouTube channels, go watch their videos and you'll see on all their videos, they're basically complaining about how women don't want them and women would rather be 304s or they'd rather be cat ladies. And it's like, okay, so then that tells me that those men are the ones who are not desirable. So what they're trying to do is they want to project that talking point onto women. They're trying to convince you that your value is determined based on your age. And I feel like that talking point is only true for medium ugly women. I don't like calling people ugly, so I like to use the term medium ugly. So that term is only true for medium ugly women or women who wasted their youth. Maybe they wasted their beauty. Maybe they made a whole bunch of bad decisions, like they got addicted to substances or something like that. That's the only scenario that I can think of where it's truly hitting a wall. Or like a woman that's with a dusty man and then like she stops taking care of herself. Those are the only women I can think of that truly have this hitting the wall type of thing. If you're already pretty, if you have pretty privilege, and if you take basic care of yourself, there is no wall. So you mean to tell me that Angela Bassett, Naomi Campbell, Meg Thee Stallion, who's 30 years old, you mean to tell me that all these women are ugly or that they have lost their value or like no one wants them or, they don't have access to high quality partners? First of all, everybody doesn't want to be married. Everyone doesn't have to be married. Having a relationship is not a prize. So anytime somebody makes that talking point, you hit the wall, what they're saying is your value is determined based on what relationship status you have. So they have this mindset where they put marriage on a pedestal. They feel like relationships are like this pyramid. And then you've got being single at the bottom, and then marriage is at the top. So they feel like, oh, if you're not married by 30, that's dangerous. You're in the danger zone. Danger of what? What is it that we are supposed to be afraid of? Do you see how that's actually a fear-based talking point? That's why they use the phrase danger. They put that word in there. Danger, the actual definition of the word danger means you're at risk of death. So somebody not being married, no, you're not going to pass away if you're not married. No, you're not going to die. So they're using extremist language because they want women to feel afraid. They want women to have a scarcity mindset. So what they're doing is they're saying you hit the wall because they want you to become more desperate so that you can lower your standards and settle for dating a dusty or dating a bum. They want you to feel down on yourself so that you can sleep with a man who is like beneath you in terms of social status. That's what they're doing. They're trying to diminish your social status. They want you to give all of your social power away to men. So they're trying to convince you that you're not beautiful. They're trying to convince you that because you hit a certain age, that now suddenly you have no options. And also that's another question that I have for people in red pill. It's like, okay, what is your definition of having options? Like, what do you mean by options? Are you talking about dating options, marriage options? Because women are not a monolith. Every woman doesn't even want the same thing. And there are plenty of women who are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, and they still have pretty privilege. And they still have a social pedestal. Beauty is a form of currency. Attention is also currency. So that's why we see women on social media, kind of like these IG baddies and like these OF girls and stuff. That's why we see these women receiving a pedestal. So they're receiving money. They're still getting money. They're still getting status. They're still getting fame and popularity. So what is this concept of you have no options. Options for what? Notice how they never describe what you're supposed to have options for. That's how I know it's a gaslighting talking point. It's a gaslighting talking point. Also, if women over the age of 30 truly hit the wall and, they're low value, then why can't the low value men just get with all the 30-year-olds then? If all the women who are 30 and older are, a 2 out of 10, or she went from a 10 to a 2, okay, so then these average men should have no problem pulling these women who are in their 30s. So why are men still being rejected then? If women hit the wall and their value has gone down, and now the men are the prize suddenly, then there should be no incels. Incels wouldn't exist then, because all the incels would be getting attention from the women who are 30 and above, right? So we already know that society shows that women still hold their value. Men want women way more than women want men. If you go onto any dating app, the average dating app has more men on it than women. And I think that part of this comes from the codependency that we see in men. A lot of men are very bad at emotional regulation. And so a lot of men actually need women, not just in terms of sex, but also for things like emotional support and companionship. We know that statistically, men are bad at building communities in comparison to women. So they also need women more for companionship. So this whole concept of, women hit the wall, it's like, no, a lot of men, they have been born at the wall. They hit a financial wall. A lot of men age way worse than women. The average man ages badly. I mean, a lot of men, they don't even know how to grow their hair out. They don't even know how to prevent baldness. They don't know how to prevent grays. They're over here walking around with beer bellies. And I'm not one of those women that promotes dating ugly men or whatever, because that's another thing too. Men have a lot more insecurities to deal with than women, because a man knows that if he's ugly, he already knows that that woman is only with him for his money anyway. So it's like, sir, who really hit the wall? Clearly you hit the wall in terms of looks, which is why you had to rely on your finances. That's why you had to pay money to get a woman to spend time with you. You had to pay money for a woman on OF to respond to you. You had to pay money to a cam girl so she can video chat with you. Women wouldn't do this shit for free. Okay, so that tells me that women's social status and social value and the desirability of women in general is way higher than men. Look at the average celebrity. Look at the average influencer. Who's more popular in terms of gender? Women. As women, we are more likely to have people want to watch us, or, think about it. Like, I don't see a lot of men saying, oh yeah, I want to be a model. I want to be an influencer. I want to be a pop star. No, you don't see a lot of men being able to make it in fields like that. A lot of men, they have to stay behind the scenes, because women, like society in general, they don't want to stare at men. They don't want to look at men. So women, we are like the princesses of society. I actually do believe in the concept of female privilege. I do believe in that concept. That really is a thing. So they're actually right when they talk about female privilege. Okay, so because I have female privilege, I'm always going to have that. Whether I'm 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, I'm always going to have female privilege. And you also have to remember too that there are always exceptions. So even if women past a certain age had less options or less status or less beauty, there are always going to be exceptions to that rule. I mean, here on the Exoticals United YouTube channel, this is a community full of pretty privileged women. This is a community full of women who were born with pretty privilege. We already have pretty privilege. So that's not really, that's never been like a fear of mine. That's why I have no problem talking about my age or sharing my age. I am 33 and a half years old. I can't wait until I get old. It's actually been the opposite for me. And that's another thing too. A lot of men, first of all, how is a man going to tell you accurately what the experience is with being a woman? Why would I listen to a man try to tell me what it's like to be a woman? He doesn't know what it's like to be a woman. He doesn't have that experience. Not to mention the fact that a lot of the women that men lust after are women who are 30 and up. Like I said, Meg Thee Stallion is 30. Rihanna, I think, is in her 30s. She's over her 30s. Beyonce, Halle Berry. There are so many women out there that a lot of men worship that are above the age of 30. And that's because those women are already pretty. They're already exceptional. So I think that if you already have pretty privilege gives you inherent visibility. So if you already have this additional pedestal, then you you don't even need to really worry about the whole aging thing because you're still going to be pretty when you get older. Look at Sade. I hear a lot of men say that they have a crush on Sade. Sade is like maybe in her 50s or 60s or something. Vanessa Williams is another good example. So when you have pretty privilege, this whole concept of completely losing your desirability, I think that's only the case for women who never truly had desirability to begin with. So that's who that talking point applies to. It's the women who were already, they were already a quote unquote medium ugly woman. So it's like, yeah, if you were already medium ugly and then you add in a whole bunch of wrinkles and bad hygiene and like your hair's broken off and it's going bald now and then you're also fat and you're 60. Okay, yeah, now that talking point makes sense. But for women who already have pretty privilege, that talking point doesn't stand. And if women did hit the wall would be nowhere near as bad as it is for men. And a lot of people say, oh, well, men, they get better off as they get older because they get access to more money. Okay, the same can be said for women. Women are actually outpacing men in terms of education, first of all. Okay, so women who have access to more money as they get older, that means that they can spend their money on attaining beauty if they wanted to. So the same talking point, anything they try to say that's a benefit for men, it's a benefit for women as well. So there is no advantage that men truly have as they get older that women can't have. Also, this mindset of, oh, well, men, they build their careers up and, men become a lot more financially stable. Okay, but again, the majority of the population makes less than $100,000 per year. And we know that because I have a whole Decentering Men series on this channel. And so the average man in his 40s is still making less than 100K. So you guys trying to have this talking point of, oh, well, men, they become rich as soon as they hit their 40s and 50s. That's a lie. The majority of society is not rich, and you know it. That's not how capitalism works, sir. We already know that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, or the poor become middle class. Okay, so going from broke ghetto ass hood booger to becoming middle class, sir, that's not the glow up that you think it is. You just became average. So saying that you have more social power than women because you're middle class, you make 50K a year, and oh my God, she's 30 years old, so she hit the wall. That doesn't even make logical sense. That sounds like the fantasy of an incel. And again, look at the men who run those YouTube channels where they're making those talking points. These are men who they couldn't swing it in the American dating market, so they had to literally eliminate themselves from America and go to other countries where the women are deeply impoverished. They had to go to other countries, and those women from the other countries are only with those men so they can get access to the men's money, not because he's attractive and he's so hot and he has such a great personality. No, it's because she wants financial stability. That's the only reason she's even talking to him. So a lot of those men, they don't even have the social status or desirability for me to even take them seriously. I haven't seen not one manosphere guy to where I thought in my mind, oh yeah, I would date him. So it's like, okay, if I don't even view those guys like that, why would I listen to what they have to say? And then some of the men making that content, they're on the DL, they're not even straight. So it's like, why would I listen to a zesty man try to tell me what it's like to be a heterosexual woman? Why do we have men who are so obsessed with the experiences of heterosexual women? It's like, dude, just admit that deep down inside you want to be a woman. That's fine. Just admit it. Just admit that you're LGBT. Just admit that you want to be a woman. You want to dress like a woman. You want to have the experiences of a woman. A lot of men are actually jealous of women. So this whole talking point of, oh, you hit the wall, that's actually a humbling tactic. He's mad at your desirability. And so he's hoping that you are insecure about your age. He's hoping that you're male-centered when it comes to that. And also, when it comes to your age, women in their 30s or 40s, all they have to do is just date a man that's older than that. Like, if you truly are insecure about that, if it's really that big of a deal for you to be perceived as young, then just date a guy who's older than you. It's not that big of a deal. Just date someone 10 years older or, however old you're comfortable with dating. Because that's another thing that a lot of male content creators aren't taking into consideration. Every man doesn't want a 25-year-old woman. A 65, so you're telling me that a 65-year-old wants a 25-year-old? That's creepy to me. That's more so creepy, and that's more transactional. I would say that a lot of men that are making this content about, oh, you hit the wall, they're viewing relationships in a transactional way. So I think that, yeah, maybe when it comes to being a sugar baby or, stuff like that, okay, then that makes a little bit more sense. But the majority of women are not sugaring. The majority of women, especially the majority of women like on dating apps and all that, those women are usually not escorts and stuff. So I think that those men, they're taking talking points from kind of like the pimp culture, or they're taking talking points from escort culture, and they're trying to apply it to everyday women, as if the average 35-year-old nurse wants to be an escort and date a 65-year-old. That's not the case. Another reason why that talking point doesn't stand is because of beauty innovation. So we all know that a lot of men, first of all, men tend to be very women centered. They tend to be very sex centered. Men worship beauty way more than they'd like to admit. Men care about the looks of their partner the most. Okay? A lot of women, they might date a guy where, oh, maybe his teeth are a little bit messed up, or maybe he's got a little tiny bit of a dad bod or whatever. But men, no, a lot of men are actually obsessed with women's beauty. So another reason why I say that women have more power in this area is because of beauty innovation. They have so many innovations nowadays to where a woman actually could be 40 and she could look younger than her age because maybe she got something done. Maybe she got some work done or whatever. And a lot of men, they're lusting after and worshiping women who have had tons of work done. They're falling in love with filters. And that's why they complain about catfishing. It's like, okay, well, if you didn't have such magical thinking and such a high pedestalization of beauty, you wouldn't have been able to be catfished. Because you wouldn't have romanticized a woman based on her beauty. A lot of men struggle with magical thinking. They struggle with romanticization of women. I don't even know if that's a word, but they struggle with romanticizing women and sexualizing women. So the average man, he's going to be doing one of those things. So because of that, that's what gives women the power, because it gives you the power of manipulation, whether or not you're even trying to manipulate him. Being beautiful, that's actually a form of manipulation. You're putting on the mascara or whatever. You're kind of manipulating the man's perception of you. And that's why a lot of men get so upset, because they're like, wait a minute, I had this fantasy of what your beauty was. And now when you take off the makeup, your lashes aren't as long anymore. Your lipstick isn't as bright anymore. Wait a minute, that's not how you really look. A lot of men get upset when you don't meet their sexual fantasies. And also, when it comes to this whole hitting the wall talking point, I also think you have to take into consideration that men have sexual preferences as well. So whatever content creator is saying that, maybe he personally prefers a woman that's 18 years old, or, maybe he's a 35-year-old man that wants to date a 19-year-old. Okay, so that's him. That's just his personal perception. One man's opinion does not change my experience in society. One man's opinion is not going to change my perception of myself. I don't even watch. Like I said, I don't even watch or keep up with like manosphere content creators. I don't even have them in my algorithm, so I really don't know what they're talking about. But a lot of them make this talking point that you're hitting the wall because they want to pressure women into settling down earlier. They want to pressure you into chasing after a man. That's why. They're hoping that they can try to change women's minds. They want us to chase after them. That's why they're saying that. So, if you're 29 and then a random Dusty says, oh, you're going to hit the wall in your 30s, he's saying that because he wants you to become desperate. He wants you to chase after him. That's why he's saying that. And then another thing, it's a form of confirmation bias. Because men who say that women lose their desirability after 30, they're ignoring all of the attractive women who are 30 and above. So they're trying to pretend like those women don't exist. And we already know, and society tells us, that not only do attractive women over 30 exist, but they are worshipped and they're put on a pedestal in the same way as anyone else. Another flaw with their talking point is it's very shallow. So they complain about women being shallow. They say, oh, well, you only want men who are 6 feet and above. You only want men with a six-pack. You only want men who make six figures. So it's hilarious how they complain about women being shallow, but then they want to diminish a woman to a 1 to 10 rating scale, or they want to diminish a woman's worth to her age or her physical appearance. So it's like they're accusing you of something that they are doing themselves. So that's another reason that I don't take them seriously. And also, when a woman is in her late 20s or she's in her 30s, a lot of women start to have more financial stability. So they don't need a man as much as they did when they were young and poor. And so a lot of women who are older become more choosy and more picky because we're not the same dumb 21-year-old. Like for me, in my early 30s, I'm not the same person as I was in my early 20s. I'm way smarter now and I'm way more strategic when it comes to interacting with men in my early 30s than my early 20s. So I think some men, they get mad because as you gain experience, you start to learn about the nature of men and then they can no longer manipulate you. So that's really why they're mad. So they're trying to lie to you and convince you, oh, well, you're not worth anything anyway. And it's like, okay, first of all you're doing is you're making me want to not date at all. Because if a man tells me that I'm going to lose my value as I get older, okay, so then why get married then? If I'm going to lose my value and all it takes is a couple of gray hairs for a guy to want to abandon me or whatever, okay, so then you're just convincing women not to want to marry you guys. You're convincing us to not fuck with you guys even more. Because the 23-year-old, she's going to realize, wait a minute, I only have value with this guy for the next 7 years. So why should I marry him? Why should I settle down? Why not use my 20s and stay on this pedestal? And that's what I would say too. If you are in your early 20s watching this, use your social power as much as you can. Exploit that social power as much as you can. Use your pedestal as much as you can. Get all the gifts or whatever it is that men are offering you. If it's helpful for your life, then take that. And you should exercise your options or your social power, because if you have men saying that women are most valuable in their 20s, that means that they put women in their 20s on a pedestal. So if you're in your 20s watching this, definitely take advantage of that pedestal. Use that pedestal however you see fit. Because men who are saying, oh, all women lose their value. Okay, cool. So thank you for letting us know that you put women in their 20s on a pedestal. So now the women in their 20s get to have more social power over you. And I hope they do utilize that social power to their advantage. So no matter which way you spin it, their talking point still has flaws. But when it comes to that concept of hitting the wall, I really feel like that has more to do with women who let themselves go versus just hitting a particular birthday. Like, yeah, if you let yourself go and you're only 21, then you hit the wall. I've seen some women who are 21 years old. They're already obese. They already have gray hair. They already, they have bad skin or whatever. So it's like, if you're basing the wall on physical aesthetics or physical appearance, your physical appearance can be changed and manipulated. But I really think it has more to do with men wanting to be worshipped, because the average woman, once she hits 30, a lot of women, they start to develop more self-confidence. We got more money. A lot of women are purchasing their first property, or they're learning how to invest. Maybe they fix their credit or whatever. So I think that age 30 and above, that's actually when a lot of women start to step into their power. That's when a lot of women start to realize our worth. And so I think that's the real reason why a lot of men, they get mad once we hit 30. It's because it's pretty hard for them to manipulate you once you have 30 years of experience. I am way more confident now in my 30s. I actually look way better in my 30s. This is actually the best I've looked probably in my entire life, because I actually have money now to invest in my beauty. So it's like, I look better than I ever have in my 30s. I'm treated better than I ever have been in my 30s. I have more opportunities than I ever have in my 30s versus my 20s. I don't want to go back to my early 20s. I really don't. I don't want to go back to my early 20s. I do not think that I looked better in my early 20s than I do now. I had a lot of, I didn't halfway know how to do my makeup, or like, I didn't have money. I didn't have as much money to like go get a facial, go to the dentist, go get some exfoliating scrubs, or go to the salon as much as I wanted to. I didn't have access to stuff like that. And I think that's what a lot of those men want. They want you to be in your 20s, young, dumb, and broke. A lot of them are attracted to women who are uneducated and poor. Let's be honest, that's what a lot of them are attracted to. That's why they go to these countries where a lot of women don't even have a fifth grade education, or they go to these countries where the age of consent is much lower. In Nigeria, the age of consent is what, 11 years old? In the Philippines, it's what, 12 years old? In Colombia, the age of consent is 14 years old. In Dominican Republic, some marriage laws still permit girls from age 15 and up to be married. So look at those channels, look at those YouTube channels, go to the Passport Bro channels and see what countries they're promoting the most. Generally speaking, they want to go to the poorest countries in the world. They're going to these third world countries, or they're going to places where the age of consent is lower. They're going to places where the women are so impoverished and so uneducated to the point where they're willing to do anything just to have access to a meal. So that man, he doesn't want a normal relationship. He wants a power dynamic. So that whole concept of, oh, you hit the wall, that's not a genuine talking point. That's about power dynamics. He's mad because you're stepping into your power in your late 20s. You know, you've graduated college by your late 20s. You've got a career for yourself by your late 20s. You're no longer codependent in your late 20s. So that's a power dynamic comment. Oh, well, you hit the wall. Okay, so just admit you want someone who's as young as possible. So then eliminate yourself from the American dating market. I support Passport Bros. I would love for the Passport Bros to leave the United States and go to another country. Go be someone else's problem. I support that 100%. I'm actually very grateful for the Manosphere and Red Pill because it helped expose the pathology of those types of men. So I'm actually glad that they have YouTube channels. I'm glad that they came out here and showed their asses like that and exposed what they really think, because it helps me to know who to stay away from. So I actually support them having a voice. I'm glad that they have a voice. I'm glad that I get to see their faces. I get to see who it is and who's watching it. I'm glad that I know all the buzzwords and all the terms that they're using. I mean, I don't keep up with everything about Red Pill, but I'm glad that I get to see what some of their mindset truly is, because no matter what they say, there are always going to be holes in their talking points. And again, those types of men, obviously they're not capable of love. Obviously they're not capable of a healthy relationship. A lot of those spaces are filled with mainly abusive men who want the right to abuse women. That's what it is. Go look at some of those content creators. Go look up their backgrounds. A lot of them have like criminal backgrounds, or it's like they have a lot of issues. They've been banned from certain countries. Go look up like Andrew Tate and people like that. A lot of those men who are the leaders of those movements, they have a lot of legal issues. They have a lot of DV issues. So it's like, why would I listen to any talking points from men who are mentally ill, basically? I don't want to listen to what mentally ill men have to say about my value. And also, again, I don't listen to a man that I'm not even attracted to, that I have no respect for. If it's somebody that I actually had respect for, okay, then sure. But when I look at these content creators, there's no one on there that I've ever been like, oh, wow, that's a very respectable man. Like, I've never heard, like Barack Obama, for example, I've never heard him say, oh, well, you hit the wall if you're 30 years old and above. I've never heard men who actually have a high level of social status and financial status. I've never heard super high status men make those talking points. And if they have made those talking points, usually those men get exposed, or they have a lot of financial problems later on, or they've got a lot of women coming out of the woodwork saying that, you know, this man essayed them or whatever. Look at like Shannon Sharp. I think that's his name, the guy who just got fired. So it's like a lot of those men, if they do have some form of status and maybe they make like red pill talking points, they don't, like, their success doesn't even last long anyway. And for a lot of these men, they don't want a woman to love. They want an ex-worker. They want an escort. They want an OF girl, but they just want the girl to only be that way with him. They want a girl to be their slave. That's really what it is. So that's why they're making that talking point. Oh, you have no value. Any man who says stuff like that, he has the Madonna whore complex. So he feels like if you're not a wife or a mother or some sort of submissive woman or whatever, then you're automatically a Jezebel or you're worthless. And then if you're a woman who's in her late 20s or 30s and maybe you're not interested in dating him, it's the same thing. So it's basically like, okay, if you don't want to date me, then you're worthless. It's because you hit the wall anyway. It's kind of like it's like a comeback. If you look at a lot of those content creators, they struggle with a lot of rejection. They've been rejected a whole bunch of times throughout their childhood. And, you know, these are men who have never had social status. They've never had desirability. They didn't grow up being desirable. They weren't desirable in college. They weren't desirable in their early 20s or whatever. So a lot of them have a lot of pent up rage. And so they take it out on women, especially women who are confident. And it's also a form of projection because a lot of men in their late 20s and 30s, they hit the wall because if a man's in his late 20s or 30s and he doesn't have a career, maybe he never went to school, he never got educated, now he's starting to get fat, he's going gray or whatever. A lot of those men, they actually start to experience even more rejection than before. A lot of men who were in their late 20s and early 30s thought that they would be married or they thought that they would be desirable. They thought that if they had a career that the women would just come flocking to them and the women didn't. So a lot of men are actually projecting when they say no one wants you after 30. No, no one wants you after 30, Tyrone. That's why you're saying that to random women on the internet. It's because even with all of your money, look at a lot of celebrities. A lot of wealthy men are incels as well. And I was going to make a YouTube video about this, but I'm not sure what YouTube is going to flag or not. But yeah, even like wealthy men, a lot of wealthy men are incels as well. That's why you have hypergamy creators talking about how if you're a young, beautiful woman, to go and talk to these men who maybe he's ugly or he's fat or whatever, because that whole concept of, oh, if you have money, then suddenly all the women are just flocking to you and they're throwing themselves at your feet. No, that's usually not the case, even if a man does have money. Because think about it. How do you know a man has money? I'm talking about a non-famous man, just a man walking down the street. You really don't know if he's a multi-millionaire or billionaire just based on looking at him. Because, some of them are flashy, but some of them are not. So a lot of men who even have money and a little bit of status, they still struggle with rejection. Even if a man's a celebrity or if he's an NFL player or something, they still get rejected too. They do. They still get rejected all the time. There's no such thing as a perfect man who has never experienced rejection in his life. There's no such thing. So I don't care who the man is. He's going to be rejected at some point. So some men, once they hit a certain age or when they hit a certain level of status, they thought that their desirability would go up. Most men peak in high school and college. And I can tell you that as a woman who went to college. Like most men peak in high school, most men peak in college. That's when they will have the most access to women that they've ever had, is like in college, when everybody's living in the dorms and everyone's on campus and you're kind of forced to be in the same vicinity as that person. So for most men, that's the case. And a lot of people, they try to live vicariously through these NFL players and stuff. Like I see a lot of men, they live vicariously through NFL players. They live vicariously through rappers and shit. And it's like, okay, that's 0.001% of the population. And even then, a lot of women still are not truly interested in that rapper for who he is as a person. They're not actually physically attracted to him in a lot of cases. They just want access to his money and resources. And then once they get the access to that, then they abandon him, just like how everybody else did to him throughout his life. So a lot of men, they experience way deeper abandonment wounds than women ever will. And again, this goes back to childhood. A lot of little boys are not raised to learn how to emotionally regulate. A lot of little boys are emotionally neglected, actually. Men get emotionally neglected way more than women. And so this is why I say that, their loneliness, like the male loneliness epidemic, their loneliness hits deeper because they don't have anyone to open up to. A lot of them are bad at building communities, so they have no friends. So then, being around a woman, that's his only way of socializing. That's his only way of feeling wanted. That's his only way of feeling adored, is by having a woman who's romantically interested in him, and then by having children who put him on a pedestal. They put daddy on a pedestal. So if a man has none of that, if he doesn't have a woman or he doesn't have like kids that love him, or maybe he was an a-hole to his kids, so now his kids don't speak to him or whatever, a lot of men, they experience a much deeper level of loneliness than women ever will. And that's why you see the self-unaliving rates of men are way higher. The unaliving rates of men are way higher. Violent tendencies are way higher in men. And part of that has to do with the emotional wounds that men have that are unhealed. So a man will never be able to convince me that I don't have any social power, or that, I hit the wall and, now the tables have turned and now he's the desirable one. He's the one with social power. No, he's really not, because if he truly was that fulfilled and had that many people loving on him and adoring him, then we would not see the self-unaliving rates being what they are. So that talking point is actually laughable. And also, most men in their 30s and 40s still struggle to attract younger women. So that's why they're leaning on this narrative of, oh, you hit the wall. So again, it's a form of projection. No, Scott, you're ugly and fat and look like a rip-off Santa Claus. You're the one who has a patchy beard. You're the one who has a receding hairline. You're the one who has a dad bod. You know, your stomach's hanging over your pants. You're working this middle management cubicle job. So a lot of men, they're struggling with a lot of rejection. Men are not out here being picked up and, oh, they're catcalled. How many women have you seen catcall men? When a 40-year-old man is walking down the street, do you see a bunch of women catcalling him and following him? When a 40-year-old man posts a picture on Instagram, do you see a lot of women sliding into his DMs? No, that's laughable. That's why I say that talking point, it's literally laughable because it's not real. It's not real. It's more likely for a 40-year-old woman to be walking down the street and have people chasing after her. So if the argument is who's more desirable, again, it's always going to be women, regardless of age. Because men want women way more than women want men, whether it's sexually, emotionally, for companionship, to help go 50-50 because he's codependent. He wants a mommy figure. Men want women way more than women want men. And this is because a lot of men are not good at building masculine communities where they help build each other up and they, emotionally support each other. No, he needs a woman to do that. So they're way more codependent on women than women are codependent on them. If you want to compare who's more codependent, if anything, women would be more likely to be codependent financially. But the wealthy class of men, that's a very, very small sector of men. And then I hear some men saying, oh, you got 99% of women chasing 1% of men. That's false. Where did you get that statistic from? Pull up the stats, pull up the article. That's not a real statistic. That's something they made up and then they put it in their content. Oh, well, the majority of women want this one type of man. All women want NFL players. That's false. I have personally rejected more than one NFL player. So I am living proof that that is a false statement. That all women want NFL players, or they prefer an NFL player, or they prefer a rapper. No, that sounds like the talking point of a jealous man. That man is jealous of the status of the NFL player. That man is jealous that that NFL guy actually had the talent and skill and discipline to make it in the NFL, and he didn't have that. And so as a coping mechanism, he wants to convince himself that, oh, well, all the women, they're just going after the NFL players, and the women don't want me. And they're just going after the men who are 6 feet tall. That literally sounds like a 4-year-old having a tantrum. You just want the men who have a six-pack. You just want the men who aren't bald. You just want the men that have straight teeth. And so now I'm mad at you. Do you hear how that statement is just oozing with jealousy? Oh, and speaking of jealousy, I feel like most men are actually way more jealous than women. A lot of men have what I call pathological envy. So that's why you see these cases of men unaliving women after the woman dumps him and gets with a new man. He'll unalive that woman, or even on the T app. Did you guys see the guy who is unaliving? He unalived like 5 women in Detroit because they exposed him on the T app. Because that man is jealous of the social power and influence that women have on the T app. So he's so threatened by women talking amongst themselves. He's so jealous of the fact that women actually believe other women. Because let's be honest, most men don't even like other men. The majority of men are actually very antisocial. A lot of men view other men as their competition. Who created the concept of war? Was it women? No, it's men. A lot of men can't even get along with men who are their geographical neighbors. That's why we have problems. That's where the whole concept of war started, and, capitalism and slavery. What gender created all of those things? Pretty much all of the evils that you see in society today. What gender created them? Who created patriarchy? Men. Who created wars and colonization? Men. Who created economic power structures that disadvantage people based on the color of their skin or the country that they're from? It's men. Okay? So we all know that historically, men have been known to dislike other men way more than women disliking other women. Women may have social competition with one another. Women may have like sexual competition with one another. But generally speaking, you don't see the level of violence women on women. You don't really see that as much as you do with men. So you're not going to be able to convince me that that somehow men are just socially better off and men are just so much more emotionally fulfilled than women. No, historically speaking, that's not the case. Socially speaking, that's not the case. And especially when it comes to dating, that is not the case. A lot of men don't even know how to communicate their needs in a relationship. So even if a man does get in a relationship, he doesn't know how to communicate his wants and desires. This is also why you see a cheating problem as well. Cheating is emotional. First of all, cheating is abuse. Okay, I stand 10 toes down on that talking point. But also, you know how they try to say, oh, women are cheating for emotional reasons and men are just cheating for physical reasons. That's false. Men also cheat for emotional reasons. Like if a man sleeps with your friend or something, men cheat so they can humble women. So that woman that's confident and she's not taking any bullshit from her boyfriend, and then the boyfriend goes and cheats, or the woman who got promoted at her job so now she makes more money than him, and in order to feel like a man he wants to cheat. Okay, so that's an emotional reason. You cheated because you felt like a bitch. You felt like you didn't measure up socially. You didn't measure up economically to your girlfriend. You felt small. You felt insecure, and then that's why you cheated. Okay, so that's an emotional reason for cheating. So this whole talking point where it's like, oh, men only cheat for physical reasons. First of all, cheating is still abuse. So there's never an excuse for abuse. I don't care why you did it. And it's hilarious. It's crazy to me that men are even making an excuse or like making an exception. Like it's okay. Like, yeah, that's why we cheated. It's just because we just wanted something new. As if that makes it okay to do it. But then if a woman were to do that, when women cheat on the men, you see men going into a rage. Like I said, you see a lot of DV cases. You see a lot of cases where a man is willing to risk going to jail so that he can get revenge on a woman who cheated on him. Yet you expect me to believe that women are the one who hit the wall? No, men hit the wall emotionally. They hit the wall in terms of self-esteem. They hit the wall in terms of not knowing how to think long term. And that's why you see these cases of men doing these irrational things. They're not afraid to risk it all. They're willing to lose everything they have. And that's also why you see like NBA players and stuff going broke. What gender in sports is more likely to spend up all their money and screw off their money and go broke? It's men. And why do they do that? Codependency. Because they know that nobody likes them for their personality or whatever. They're trying to buy people's love. So then they're paying off the bills and, they're blowing their money on strippers and escorts and women who don't give a fuck about them. They're blowing their money on these people because they're hoping that by throwing money at people that they can attract love. So again, they're very transactional. A lot of men are very transactional in nature. So you can't convince me that women hit the wall more than men. I don't care if a woman is 65 years old and ugly. A 65-year-old ugly cat lady still has more peace than a man who has to be violent against his girlfriend because she cheated. Who do you see having more psychological breakdowns and meltdowns to the point where they literally end up in prison? It's men. So the concept of women hitting the wall, no. Men experience physical decline earlier than they think. A testosterone, just so you know, testosterone begins declining in their late 20s and it drops after 30. So that affects their muscle mass, that affects their energy, it affects their mood, it affects their libido. So that's why you see a lot of older men who look very frail. You know how some men are like super buff? How many super buff, in shape men do you see over the age of 50? So your testosterone has already begun declining in your late 20s. And then also they say, oh, men can have babies up until they're 80 years old. No, actually men's fertility declines as well. Their sperm quality goes down. The DNA integrity decreases with age. Okay, so that actually increases the risk for the woman's pregnancy. The quality of the men's sperm. It increases the woman's risk for having like a bad pregnancy if his sperm quality is bad. So that whole fertility argument is out the window. And then when they say, oh, male attractiveness, men get more attractive in their 30s. Okay, men in their early 30s, they might look a little bit better because of income or they have more confidence. But if they don't maintain their looks, which most men are bad at, because again, a lot of men were not raised to prioritize health and physical aesthetics. So a lot of men are just bad at it in general. So men tend to make more beauty mistakes. When I say men make beauty mistakes, what I'm talking about is men with bad haircuts, men who think they're looking good in terms of fashion, but they actually look horrible, or they look like they're LGBT even though they're not trying to look like that. So saying that men's attractiveness goes up, that's debatable as well. Because we know that a lot of men are not good at maintaining their looks. Men are not even good at maintaining their finances in most cases. Because, like I said, capitalism is not set up for everybody to be rich. So this whole mindset, all these YouTube videos where it's like, oh, men are just perfect after 30 and, they got so much money and they're so attractive. No, actually, they're not. Men get wrinkles as well. Women are not blind. And that's another thing. They say, oh, well, men are visual and women are not. Oh, that's a damn lie. That's a lie. I'm visual. And women in general are visual. And that's why even if you go to the hypergamy channels, you'll hear those creators saying things like, oh, get one man to have money and then get the other man that you're actually physically attracted to. So this whole lie that, oh, women are not visual. Yes, they are. And that's why a lot of these men are with women and the women cheat on them with the guy that's hotter than them. And they'll be like, oh, she's sleeping with the broke pookies. And it's like, okay, so you're still not getting chosen. That means you hit the wall in some way, right? So that means you were not as physically attractive as you thought you were, sir. She wasn't attracted to your big ass stomach and you sliding over here on a walker and, you're looking hella frail and you're missing some teeth and you got to put your dentures in. No, women in general are not attracted to that. I've never in my life heard a woman say, oh yeah, I want a guy with no teeth who has to wear dentures. Oh yeah, he's so fine. Oh, that's what I want. I've never heard a woman say that. And also, a lot of the women who are sleeping with these guys, they're doing it for money. They're doing it because the man is paying their bills or whatever. So again, it's a transactional type of relationship. So that's transactional. That's not the same as your desirability, sir. She desires your wallet, not you. And then when it comes to like men's looks, if they don't maintain their looks or their social skills, which is another really big problem that a lot of men have, bad social skills. Because like I said, a lot of them are naturally antisocial. A lot of them have lacked empathy or, they weren't taught about emotions. They weren't taught how to regulate their emotions. And most of them view other men as competition as opposed to having brotherhood with other men, which is why historically we see different countries going against one another. We see the concept of war, the concept of coups, like overthrowing the king and all that shit. Who was that started by? What gender started that type of behavior? It was men. So lack of social skills is a huge problem that men struggle with way more than women. And so that creates another problem for men in dating, especially once they hit their mid 40s, their dating pool shrinks very quickly because their physical attractiveness has gone down. And like I said, the average man is not rich. What was the statistic? It was what, 75%, 80% of men make less than 100K. First of all, 100K is not even rich anyway. And then 3 out of 4 men make less than that. So if you have a roster, if you're a woman watching this right now and you have a dating roster of 4 men, guess what? 3 of those men make less than 100K. Okay, so most men, they're average in terms of finances. Most men are not, they don't look like a supermodel. They don't look like a GQ model or whatever. They don't have the body of some sort of NFL player or whatever. So male attractiveness, that's also a laughable talking point, especially once that man reaches his mid-40s. Not to mention the fact that for health, in terms of health, a lot of men hit the wall there too. Men statistically pass away younger than women in almost every country in the world. They have high rates of heart disease, obesity, lifestyle-related illnesses. That stuff starts to show up in their 40s and 50s. Diabetes and all that, hypertension, it starts to show up around middle age. And then don't even get me started on balding. Their skin is aging. The weight gain hits because all he does is sit in his basement and look at corn all day. Okay, so his wall, he's hitting the wall way more than women. He doesn't even know the basics of skincare. Men are just starting to get into skincare. I've seen where a lot of men, they don't even start using skincare stuff until they're like 35. Meanwhile, women, a lot of us have been caring for our skin since we were teenagers. So this whole concept of, oh, the man becomes more attractive because, the woman is over the age of 30. No, men are not more attractive. They're not. Go to a grocery store right now and go look at all of the men in the store who are age 30 and above. Do you think the majority of those men are attractive? And then they'll say, oh, well, women are more picky when it comes to physical attractiveness. Well, it's because the majority of you guys are not physically attractive. That's why, sir. It's not because, oh my God, we're so picky. We just have these impossible standards. And don't get me wrong, I think some women do have impossible standards, but it's like, no, majority of men on average are just not attractive, especially after the age of 30, 35, 40 years old. He doesn't know how to manage his declining testosterone. And don't even get me started on men with an average income. He doesn't even have the money and resources to go to the dentist consistently or to go and buy his skincare or get his facials or his beard, whatever it is, go to the barber shop. He doesn't even have the time, energy, or resources to do that. Not to mention the fact that with dating culture, men are the ones who are often paying for dates, despite what they try to say online. Like, oh, well, women are going 50-50 and the woman is paying for me. No, they're not. They're actually not. Men are the majority of who's on dating apps. Men match way less on dating apps. So you having all that money really doesn't matter, because if you were to make a dating profile, unless you announce in your dating profile, I make 500K, unless you were to announce it somehow, women are not going to pick you on the dating profile. The dating apps favor people with pretty privilege. Okay? So if you do not have pretty privilege as a man or a woman, that's why you're not getting like the little matches or whatever. So most men, I think there was a stat that said they match like 2% of the time. It was something really low. Like, I was actually shocked when I saw it. Actually, let me pull it up. It says match rates by gender. Men receive matches only 0.6% of the time. Okay, so that means that 99% of the time, men are not even receiving matches on dating apps. 99% of the time. They're not even receiving matches. And they have the audacity to say, oh, women hit the wall. No, majority of men been hit the wall and started at the wall and will die at the wall, because you're not even receiving any desirability. All this desirability conversation is laughable. You're literally getting rejected on a dating app, which is really considered low tier attention. That's really considered like basic low levels of attention, because a lot of people on dating apps, they like to be pen pals. You know, they're not actually going to even go on dates. So men are getting rejected 99% of the time on dating apps. So out of hundreds of swipes, only a few result in matches. In contrast, women see much higher success, with match rates around 10%. And then it says, across the swiping apps, women average a match rate of 30%, so about 1 in 3 for women. And it says men lag far behind at just 2.63%. So that means for men, if he were to swipe 100 times, 97% of the time he's being rejected. It doesn't say, oh, if he's 6 foot and above, then suddenly he gets 100% matches. No, that's not what it says on here. It says men, just in general, lag behind at only 2.63%. Okay, so it says women are roughly 11 to 15 times more likely to match than men. Okay, so there you have it, folks. Women, on average, even if she's fat, even if she's a baby mama, I don't care if she's dark-skinned, it says she's 11 to 15 times more likely to match. So that means women's desirability on dating apps, it's more than 10 times higher. So wall where? Women hit the wall where? Facebook dating. It says women have matches 72% of the time, and men only have matches 11% of the time. So almost 90% of men are being rejected, even on Facebook dating. I've never heard anything good about Facebook dating, but even there, men are being rejected 90% of the time. And then it also says that the apps are very male heavy. So for example, on Tinder, there are 76% men on there. And it's like, okay, so who's really the one who hit the wall? Who's really the one who has to compete? It's men. Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.